What you're about to see is an investigation into how a physician suspended in South Africa, allegedly for fraud, misrepresentation, and illegal practice, was able to obtain a license and practice medicine in Alberta. In December 2024, a toddler named Alita died hours after being examined and sent home by that physician at an Alberta Health Services hospital. The family has spent the past year seeking answers. This investigation traces the doctor's path from Nigeria through South Africa and into rural Alberta. It examines conflicting records and the conflicting statements of the officials responsible for hiring and supervising him. I am releasing this documentary for free, so the story of baby Alita and her father Peter can travel as far and wide as possible. I'm Mocha Bezirgan, and this is a Media Bezirgan investigation.
The trouble started early December in 2024. Yeah, we're a large family, like we have many kids, so we're very familiar with having colds, having, viruses come along, and Alita and a number of the younger kids were all going through that, as well as many of the adults.
Well, we all had a cold, and her fever wouldn't go away, and she just seemed really not herself. She was so sleepy. She never was a sleepy girl. She was always running, nothing could keep her sitting. And she'd had a fever it was coming on 5 days. And I thought that's too long. I had tried all the home remedies for bringing it down, none of that worked.
It looked serious enough that we should get a consult with the doctor.
Esther took Alita to their local hospital, but just like many small towns in Alberta, Beaver Lodge Hospital regularly experiences staffing shortages. The only doctor on call at the time was a Nigerian-trained physician who somehow obtained a medical license in Alberta despite being suspended in South Africa. He diagnosed Alita with pneumonia and prescribed amoxicillin for her.
So we picked up the amoxicillin, we went home and started giving it to her. It seemed like a lot. And so when we filled it out at the pharmacy, she said this seems like a big dose for a little girl, like she can see what it's for, right? And I said, well, they said it was for pneumonia, like it seemed like the pneumonia can be bad, right? So we didn't want to kick it. And so she said, okay, well, just make sure you give her lots of like yogurts and probiotics too, because that can be really hard on a little body. That whole night, she just couldn't sleep. She was tossing, she was turning, she was hungry, but she wouldn't eat. She stopped drinking as much as she should be, in my opinion. And then the next morning, it was the same thing. She didn't have a fever anymore, but she didn't want to eat. And I was like, it seems like, yeah, her fever's gone, but she's getting worse, like way worse.
I said, well, I think you better take her in again and have the doctor look at her.
I said, Karina, I'm pretty sure that they're going to hook her up to IV at the very least because she's probably dehydrated. So why don't you go along, because you probably need to stay overnight with her in the hospital. Esther will have to come back with baby because baby was nursing yet. Raphael was still breastfeeding. So that's why Karina went along.
So we went in and triage again. I said, we're coming in because she's complaining about her tummy now. Her tummy really hurts, and I'm afraid this amoxicillin, I'm afraid she's reacting. She laid on the hospital bed, she tossed and she turned. At one point, she got down on the ground and because they gave us a room, right? And she laid there and she cried and she was in serious distress. And then the doctor finally came after an hour, at least. He comes in, he says, hi, I'm Dr. Anazoba. Why are you here? And I said, like, we had seen him 2 days before, right? Same doctor, same nurse. And I said, she's complaining about tummy ache. And I said, I'm afraid she's reacting to her antibiotics. And he says, well, what antibiotics is she on? And I said, amoxicillin. And he's like, for what? And I said, for pneumonia? And he said, oh, is she the little girl that was here the other day? And I said, yeah. Like, I assumed he would have read the chart. He would have seen everything that I had told the nurse, right? And so he seemed confused, and so I kind of cleared, yeah, we were here. You diagnosed her with pneumonia and prescribed amoxicillin. I said, do you see any signs of her reacting? Because she had a rash. She's getting worse. She's just uncomfortable. She's, she can't sleep. She's hungry, but she won't eat. And, that's a little tummy with all that in there. And I'm afraid it's, hurting her because she's reacting. And he says, no. She's not. He says, you need to finish the course, right? Like it was a 10-day thing or something. Don't you need to check like blood work or something? And he said, no, we won't do that today because she's already upset. And I said, okay, well, I'm afraid she's dehydrated too because she hasn't been drinking enough. And he says, no, she's not dehydrated. And I don't think he asked me one question in there.
He did not ask us a lot of questions. He didn't. It was Esther, Alita's mother, that was doing all the questioning. So asking what could be the problem, and he had nothing really to say other than no to all her questions.
And so we left. We went home, and she didn't get any better. Well, we drove home, and she's very observative normally, and the moon was out, and I was trying to get her to like, look, Alita, there's the moon, and I can't see it. I can't. And she was so uncomfortable. We got home. It was like, I think it was 7 when we got home. I gave her some yogurt. She drank some yogurt, and she had a little bit of the chocolate. He had told us to give her more Tylenol for her bellyache. I was like, it just seems worse to add more things to that amoxicillin in her tummy. Like, I just didn't, because I didn't want to hurt her even more. And it hadn't been working before. So she went to sleep, and, well, she tried to go to sleep, and all evening she was like that. Half an hour here and there, like little bits of sleep. And
we never actually saw Esther and Alita after they came home because they went right to their house and tried to settle her down. But Karina came in here. Ben and I were sitting at the table, and she was pacing around the room. She was not happy. She said he didn't care for her. He didn't even look at her.
Yeah, the best way I can describe that is I know that when we got home afterwards, I was kind of upset. And it was like, this doctor did not seem like he cared.
She was starting to do weird things. Like, at one point, she was under the blanket. She says, Mom, the bad guys are getting me. And when she's like half sleeping, and I said to Peter, don't, because Peter went out to work on his truck. And I went up there, I was like, Peter, I don't want to be alone in here with the kids. This is just, I need your help. So he came in, and he was Googling all night, and he was like, all her symptoms are like pneumonia, like, but it seems like it's being fixed by this amoxicillin. At 2 or 2:30, she got up, and she was like hurting again. I was like, maybe you gotta go poop, right? Like, let's go. And so we tried, and she just was, I remember sitting there on the floor holding her, and she cried, Mom, it hurts. I was like, I'm sorry, baby, I don't know what to do. And I remember praying there when she was on the toilet that he would just make her better, because she was hurting so bad and I couldn't do anything. After she couldn't go, I took her into my bed with me because Rafe was in the crib, and I thought, I'm just gonna sit up and hold her, like maybe like air, right? Maybe she has gas, something. Finally, she settled down, closed her eyes and stopped fussing, and went to sleep. So I'd been up all the night before, and I laid down next to her, and I went to sleep. And at one point, I don't know what time it was, the baby started crying. So I went and got him and laid him in between us, and I had pushed her over just a little bit, and I had felt that she had peed, because I didn't put the diaper back on her after, and I thought, oh good, finally there's something there, right? And she was sleeping, and I didn't really, like, I was kind of half sleeping when I grabbed her from the crib, and I didn't like look at her to make sure she was sleeping. She just wasn't upset anymore, right? And I felt this wetness all here under her head, and I thought, oh, did she throw up? Like, maybe that finally, and then I saw that she wasn't moving. It was cold. And then I screamed at Peter. I said, Peter, come, and he came running in, and I picked her up, and she just was limp. I think he tried to take her from me, and I was just holding her, and then I was screaming, Mama.
We were sleeping in our room upstairs. We heard a voice saying, "She's dead," and we were startled awake, and I at first thought it was one of my boys talking about my youngest daughter, because she was sick too. And it wasn't until we kind of rose up out of bed that it was Peter.
When I heard the banging on the doors, I stuck my head out of our room and I said, Peter, what's going on? He said, she's dead. Alita's dead. And yeah, the horror that grips your heart. And Peter knows, he's had medical training. He's been a firefighter. He knows. I didn't doubt what he said, even though, of course, the shock is immense. So then I went to get Karina right away because she knows CPR.
Then when they took her from me and they laid her here on the floor and started doing, I ran into the bedroom and I said, I killed her because I thought I was forcing her to eat and drink.
And Karina said, Mom, get her out of here so we can do what we need to.
It came as quite a shock. They came back home probably around 8 o'clock in the evening after that visit with the doctor. And it was that morning at around 4:30 or 5 that we got word from Peter as to what had happened. And so it was like very hard to comprehend that possibility because we had just had them visit the doctor, so yeah.
Peter's in a tense situation. He's very sullen and really focused. So he did CPR for 45 minutes and I wasn't here the whole time, so I don't remember that. But while we sat on the couch with her, he was just quiet. Just so quiet, and yeah. And he told her how much he loved her.
There you go. Keep walking.
I don't think she suffered a lot because I hear everything, and it was right next to her. For some reason, I think he just called her home quietly and gave her peace.
When Esther and Karina both reported their visit with the doctor, I was quite angry when I sensed how he was making them feel like they were being silly for having her there a second time, just go back home.
Wasting his time.
And I was quite angry about that, more so after Alita passed, then the anger for that was just amplified. Because I knew they were saying something doesn't seem right, but he said it should be fine, so we came home, right?
When we got home from Beaver Lodge, she was doing this. The bad men are getting me. And I had a moment there and I was like, Peter, this is not right. Something is wrong. I said, we're going to take her to Grand Prairie in the morning.
They planned to take her immediately in the morning to Grand Prairie early because
That was discussed that very
we
night.
did not feel like she was getting the care she needed. Yeah, well, morning didn't come for her. You have no thought in your mind that that's even a possibility, because to that degree you still do trust doctors. You trust that he wouldn't send your child home if she's 8 hours away from dying.
The morning came, I came down the stairs and I got a phone call, and it was Ben. He was telling me that she had passed away. I didn't believe it. We saw her, and somehow with her being in Peter's arms or Esther's arms, it just didn't look like she passed away. It's just like, I couldn't believe it. Like, she needs to move, but she didn't.
When we left, I was like, okay, I trusted him. I believed what he said. But Karina, my sister, was like, he didn't seem like he was caring. Like, he didn't look into it, and at the time I didn't think about that. Now I look back and I've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've had 3 babies, and I see the pediatrician visits, and they ask so many questions. How much they're peeing, how much they're eating, how many diapers they fill, how, what. And he didn't ask me one question. The biggest thing to me is that he didn't know who she was when he came in. I told everything that I could think of to the triage nurse, and I assumed the doctor's going to hear that too. And if he didn't get all what he wanted to hear, he asked more questions.
With my doctors, the experience was definitely very different in terms of they're the ones asking the questions. That definitely did not happen with this doctor. He didn't have a sense of like he knew what he was talking about. It was always just language like, oh yeah, the drugs will fix the thing, kind of. And there was not ever actual explanations as to what could be happening.
I think there was a failure there. I don't think a child with mild pneumonia, initially diagnosed as having mild pneumonia, needs to die in Alberta.
Prior to baby Alita's passing, her family had created beautiful memories together near Clearwater Lake, British Columbia. Last summer, when the family returned to rekindle those cherished memories and to achieve a modicum of healing, hearts were left broken once again.
When I was pregnant with our littlest one, it was fall, and we were living in BC at the time, by Clearwater. There's a big lake just north of us, up in the provincial park, and Peter loved the outdoors. He loved to just walk through the bush and the rivers and the lakes and waterfalls. We had moved to BC just recently, and he just loved it. He fell in love with the place. We moved there for work, and it was going to be temporary, and he was like, no, we have to stay. It's so beautiful. We stayed there longer than the work lasted, and we had gone camping on Clearwater Lake. In our canoe, we went across the lake and made a campsite. We stayed there for 2 nights, I think, and we had a blast. She loved it. She played in the sand, and it was a little bit too cold to swim, but she went in as far as she could, and we all just had so much fun there. And Peter worked really hard, so we didn't get a lot of time together to do those kind of things. So that was a really special memory for us, and we had planned to go back there. I had ordered some floating candles from Amazon that we could put on the lake. Peter loved candles, and Lita did, and I thought it was a nice way to remember her.
Jesus.
Jesus loves me, this I know. So we were all out there, and we have to get to the campsite by motorboat because there's no roads or anything, right? And I forgot the candles at the house. I told Peter that. I was like, I forgot the candles. We'll have to go all the way. And it's kind of a trip, right? Nobody was going back, right? And he was like, oh, shoot. And anyway, my dad had gone back to fix the boat because the boat had some problems. And so I had said, get the candles. When Dad got back with the boat, Peter's like, Esther, look, I found the candles. Because Dad had put them on the picnic table, and he was so excited. He went out and passed all the candles out to everybody. Everybody got one, and he says, I'm keeping the rest, and I'm going to go out in the kayak. We lit all the candles, and we sang Leah's favorite song. Heaven's gates do open wide.
Esther describes the 4-day family camp as both fun and healing. But on the final day of that camp, held in Alita's memory, the aftermath of the alleged negligence of the doctor who sent her home to die would mark the beginning of another nightmare.
And he went out, and I could see him lighting candles in the water. Benjamin came running over, his brother, and said, I think Peter tipped over.
Peter Gerbrandt's body was recovered from Clearwater Lake on June 30, 2025, 4 days after he tipped over. The Hatarian Emergency Aquatic Response Team from Manitoba heeded the family's request for help and traveled about 2,000 kilometers to recover Peter's body from the cold depths of Wells Gray National Park. The team located his body at a depth of about 430 feet and brought it to the surface later that day. The glacial lake preserved Peter's body perfectly, giving his family a final chance to say goodbye. Clearwater RCMP Sergeant Grant Simpson confirmed there was no suspicion of foul play. He praised the HEART team for their work and said the recovery brought a measure of closure to the family and the community. Just when they were beginning to heal, just when Peter was seen smiling again, tragedy struck once more. Peter left behind 2 sons, who are perhaps too young to understand, and a loving wife who's left to seek justice for baby Alita, who is now accompanied, in peace, by her father, Peter, right next to her.
But lately it comes to me so often. I wonder, what were their last moments like? Did they want me to be there? Did they call for me and I didn't come?
Yeah, June, it was 1 year ago. Even with Alita passing, it was hard for us to, sometimes she should be there, but she isn't. And sometimes it feels like it's not, but it is. In reality, it is.
I want people to know who they were and who they maybe could have been. But mostly I think if there's a way we can prevent this from happening, I would do anything to change one aspect that could have fixed it. That could have changed the outcome and given them a life and us a family. And this is her papa, Peter. He's 28 years old when he went home to see his baby. But he broke all of our hearts again. It's been a long time since I actually seen them, so here. I take a lot of walks here when it's not so snowy. His mom has told me since he passed that after Alita, he was like, I feel like this is something we can get through. He said, but Esther's just so sad and I don't know how to help. And I remember feeling the same way about him. She painted that for me on Saturday before she passed. She loved baths. So many times in the evening I'd just be crying in the bathroom, and he'd come in and he wouldn't say anything, he'd just hug me. And he wasn't that kind of person. He was a quiet but very kind and outdoorsy. Peter was a dreamer. He had so many dreams. I like to think his favorite dream came true. He got to be a dad.
Spin circle. Spin circle. There you go.
I have a hard time not thinking about all the things that he wanted to do that won't ever be.
As a woman of deep Christian faith, Esther believes it is her solemn duty to speak the truth. She told us, if sharing our family's agony can bring awareness and prevent this nightmare from happening to another family, then so be it. Now we turn to the man at the center of this tragedy, the doctor who examined baby Alita twice and sent her home to die. His name is Dr. Ogochukwu Obed Anizoba.
In terms of clear justice, something needs to be done. It's hard for me to put myself in a position to make that call, but I certainly think that he needs to be held accountable for his conduct. And I think his conduct led to someone passing away, led to Alita's passing. And he could have prevented it, and he didn't. Then that's a serious matter.
Devastated and seeking answers, baby Alita's family filed a formal complaint with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, the self-governing body responsible for licensing and disciplining doctors in the province.
I thought this doctor should be looked into. In my opinion, he shouldn't be able to practice because he's not doing what should be done.
In their own words, we feel that Dr. Anizoba failed to care for Alita and provide the medical attention that she required to live by sending us home after briefly seeing her, only for her to die within 10 hours. We believe it is our obligation to inform you of Dr. Anizoba's negligence to prevent this or similar situations from happening again to other patients. Sincerely and with unspeakable grief, Peter and Esther Gerbrandt. Following a review, the CPSA dismissed the complaint in full.
What I wanted the CPSA to do is look in to see if he actually did go to schooling, because I've talked to lots of doctors and they seem to have such a different opinion as to what should have happened that evening.
The reply that we got to me was clearly not grabbing hold of it to try to deal with it, but sounded very much like it was wanting to just sweep it away. And that's no way for matters like this to be attended to. They need much more rapt attention, and they need to be dealt with because justice matters. You know, truth matters, and negligence matters, and it needs to be attended to. Having also learned of the potential that there's more systematic problems, like doctors not being licensed appropriately or getting licenses too easily without proper supervision, all the more reason to say, hey, well, then we need to talk about it. And deal with this matter, because people are getting hurt. Not just hurt, they're dying.
In their final letter, the CPSA wrote, Dr. Anizoba had the requisite medical skills, knowledge, and expertise to form a medical opinion of Alita's presenting condition. The decision relied heavily on an anonymous expert reviewer described only as a physician with similar training and scope of practice to Dr. Anizoba. By withholding the name of the expert, CPSA robs us of the opportunity to verify the expert's credentials to determine if he is legitimate. This skepticism arises from what our investigation uncovered about Dr. Ogochukwu. which directly contradicts the CPSA's conclusion that he possessed the requisite medical skills and expertise. At the time the family filed this complaint, they had no idea what our preliminary investigation had uncovered. Dr. Anizoba is suspended from practicing medicine in South Africa.
Well, of course, that opens a whole bunch of questions for us.
So he got suspended from South Africa.
A suspension in any physician's history is one of the most serious red flags a doctor can carry, something no legitimate physician would ever want on their record. So how did a doctor suspended in another country receive a full license to practice medicine in Alberta? I tried to ask Dr. Ogochakwu that question directly, but locating him proved far from easy. Alita's family told me that in the wake of her death, hospitals across the region quietly introduced a new informal policy. They would no longer disclose the name of the doctor on call.
Valley View Hospital, this is Sharon. I'm not allowed to tell you who the doctor is on call.
With this change, families were robbed of the opportunity to avoid doctors they didn't trust, like Dr. Ogochakwu. After days of visiting different hospitals, I finally located him at the Beaver Lodge Hospital. A young nurse asked me to wait while she went to get Dr. Ogochakwu. A few minutes later, she returned alone.
So Dr. Anizoba actually isn't available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not today or
No.
not at all?
Not at all.
Not at all. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
speak? Okay, understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
So I left. I parked outside and waited for Dr. Ogochakwu's shift to end. That's when hospital staff began monitoring me closely. And then, my phone rang.
That you're looking for me.
It was Dr. Ogochakwu himself. I finally had the chance to ask Dr. Ogochakwu why he is listed as suspended in South Africa.
I don't know who is telling you that I was suspended in South Africa. I was never suspended. I have my full license in South Africa.
His answer was not the truth. When I confronted him with the official South African Medical Board registry that clearly shows he is suspended, he immediately changed his story.
I don't know where you're getting that information from.
From the South African
please.
Medical Board.
I am not suspended. I suspended my license because I left South Africa, not working there.
Dr. Ogochakwu went from
I was never suspended. I have my full license in South Africa.
to
I suspended my license because I left South Africa.
At that moment, I felt like Dr. Ogochakwu was lying to me.
And please, don't trace me. Do
Okay.
not. Okay?
So that's
Just
all you
back
want to
up.
say?
That's all what I want to say. Okay?
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I agreed not to trace him any further, at least for now. Because long before that phone call, I had already traced him all the way back to South Africa. I went undercover at the university near Cape Town, where Dr. Ogochakwu Anizoba claims to have studied. And I visited the South African Medical Board headquarters in Pretoria, at the opposite end of the country, searching for answers.
I just need to verify some public information about some physicians.
Okay.
You were visited from Canada? Yeah. But why do you need this information? And why? And researching.
I came here despite the stern warnings of my South African contacts.
In South Africa, violent crime is soaring, with the murder rate now at a 20-year high.
Figures show 57 people are killed every single day in South Africa.
Whistleblower fatally shot in their own driveway. A police service allegedly infiltrated by the mafia. This isn't a crime thriller. This is South Africa.
South Africa is a very dangerous and highly dysfunctional country, riddled with violence, corruption, and poverty.
The poor, the farmer.
Look at South Africa, what's going on. I'm not going. I told him I'm not going.
Fraudulent doctors are a massive and growing problem here in South Africa.
Minister of Health, Joe Phala, confirmed the arrest of 124 fake doctors.
South African media loves covering unregistered bogus doctors.
A rise in the number of bogus doctors. How can that be?
They're easy to spot. Just do a quick search on the public HPCSA database and they're exposed.
At least 10 bogus doctors have been arrested since the operation started in July.
But what about the registered bogus doctors? That's who I'm here to investigate.
It's alleged council employees may have taken bribes in exchange for medical registrations and board exam passes.
The HPCSA is the country's self-governing medical board responsible for licensing physicians. It has been the subject of several corruption investigations, most notably in 2019, when employees were accused of accepting bribes for license registrations and medical board exam passes.
The group of people that we are looking at, there's 240,000 health professionals that are registered through the Health Professions Council of South Africa. The allegations that we received actually emanated from the previous registrar. He brought it to the SIU requesting assistance, where there were many allegations of people taking bribes to enable them to become registered as health professions in South Africa.
These are the far more dangerous doctors. They look completely legitimate, and they are the ones who can walk straight into Canada's fast-track system. Despite that investigation concluding 3 years ago, the President of South Africa has withheld the findings with indifference to public outcry. Yet, South Africa remains the most stable and attractive destination on the continent for education and work. It has some of the best medical schools in Africa, which is why many legitimate foreign medical graduates come here. The problem is that fraudulent foreign medical graduates from some of the most corrupt countries on earth also flock here to launder their illegitimately obtained credentials through the HPCSA. While the integrity of the HPCSA is already questionable, the board barely has the resources to catch even the unregistered imposters. A far simpler task than investigating sophisticated international fraud.
In South Africa, we almost in all the provinces, we have bogus doctors or bogus practitioners. We are in this problem because we do not have enough resources.
Canada, desperate to fill its doctor shortage, is the only G7 country that gives sweeping exemptions from exams and assessments to foreign medical graduates who have registered with the HPCSA. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta maintains a list of approved jurisdictions. On that privileged list, you will find Australia, Ireland, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Hong Kong, Singapore, Switzerland, and South Africa. The CPSA exempts South African registered foreign medical graduates from all the critical safeguards. Medical Council of Canada exams, waived. Canadian certification exams, waived. Therapeutic decision-making exam, waived. Practice readiness assessment and international medical graduate orientation workshop, waived. Preliminary clinical assessment, waived. These sweeping exemptions make Canada a preferred destination for foreign medical graduates, especially the fraudulent ones. So how did Canada end up licensing a doctor who had been suspended in South Africa? Back in the early 2010s, around the very time Dr. Anizoba arrived in Canada, South Africa's medical regulator, DHPCSA, had a policy of not fully disclosing physicians' suspension histories to foreign licensing bodies. At the same time, Canadian medical colleges relied heavily on the honesty of foreign-trained applicants. Every applicant is asked the same critical question: have you ever been suspended, disqualified, censored, or had any disciplinary action taken against you as a member of any profession? A dishonest applicant could, and did, give a false answer for years without immediate consequences. This document, obtained exclusively by Media Bezirgan from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Saskatchewan, sheds light on the exact HPCSA disclosure policy in effect around the same time Dr. Anizoba came to Canada. In it, Dr. Tshimanga Vili-Kalala, a Congolese physician who had practiced in South Africa, pleaded guilty in 2015 to repeatedly misleading Canadian regulators. Just like Dr. Anizoba, Dr. Kalala had been suspended in South Africa, yet he answered no over and over again when asked if he had ever faced a suspension. In the penalty presentation, the CPSS explains how Dr. Tshimanga Kalala was able to obtain a license despite being suspended in South Africa. The previous practice of the HPCSA was to include only those disciplinary actions which were currently active, either because the disciplinary matter was not complete or there were ongoing restrictions on the physician's ability to practice. Thus, if a physician had been suspended and the suspension was completed, or the physician had been fined and paid the fine, no information about the disciplinary action would appear on the certificate of status. This is very likely how a suspended doctor like Ogochakwe Anizoba was able to slip through the system. So what was the real reason behind Dr. Anizoba's 2012 suspension? I went undercover to South Africa's HPCSA headquarters in Pretoria to find out for myself. The HPCSA left me with the clear impression of a highly dysfunctional organization. Inside, there were no ticket machines or numbered systems to manage the queue. People simply kept arriving with no idea whose turn it was. The staff behind the counter were slow and noticeably non-transparent.
Dr. Ogochakwu Obed Anizoba.
When I explained to the woman at the desk that I had come all the way from Canada to verify some information, she simply told me to sit and wait.
There is somebody who is about me in the department, but the person is not here around today. If you don't mind, you can just take a seat.
If I could wait,
you can wait. I'll refer you to.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
After nearly 2 hours of waiting, nothing had happened, and her shift ended. So I walked back up to the counter and repeated the reason for my visit to the next staff member, who was slightly less dismissive.
I just need to verify some information about some physicians.
Okay.
By then, the battery on my hidden camera had died, but my audio recorder was still running. After a brief phone call with her superior, unfortunately, the HPCSA refused to disclose the reason for Dr. Anizoba's suspension.
He said, that's why our I register is there. He said because we are not allowed to provide you the information regarding the practitioner.
Okay. If I may ask you just one question. For example, this doctor, he's on the system, Ogochakwu. It says suspended. Is there a way to know why he was suspended? No way, eh?
Okay. Only suspended, terminated, expired. I can't even give you that information.
Yeah.
As long as you should know if the person is suspended, is not supposed to practice.
I head back to Cape Town empty-handed. But their lack of cooperation didn't matter. Because I already knew what the real reason could be for his 2012 suspension. We had hired a reputable South African private investigation firm to conduct a full background check
on Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba's medical record. The findings were extremely concerning. This is the Professional Registration, Qualification, and Practice Verification Report for Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba. It was prepared by Simply Solitude Limited, one of South Africa's leading forensic investigation and legal verification firms. The report confirms that Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba is suspended in South Africa. It warns that his license withdrawal was not administrative in nature, but followed substantive qualification and compliance irregularities identified during review. This flatly contradicts what Dr. Anizoba told me on record.
I was never suspended. I have my full license in South Africa. So please.
Okay. Internal database records indicate that Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba's license was withdrawn due to failure to meet mandatory qualification requirements, including but not limited to non-possession of a valid Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, submission and/or reliance on falsified, misleading, or improperly represented certification, dishonest representation of eligibility to practice as a medical practitioner and specialist. These findings, the report states, directly invalidates the subject's authority to have practiced as either a medical practitioner or specialist from the effective withdrawal date.
How did he get to Canada? How did he get past the discretionary methods of the Canadian system? And does this reflect the reality that he's not actually a doctor? And if that's the case, then indeed we have a medical system problem, not just a doctor problem. And then there's a whole bunch of other people that are going to have to stand culpable for things like this coming to this point. If it was just one man who snuck past and needs to be stopped, that'd be one thing. But if there's a system that's allowing it and being lax for whatever purpose, what kind of reassurances do we as a Canadian family have that we can ever have safe medical help when we need it? You know, well, it really destabilizes trust a great degree. Yeah.
Dr. Anizoba claims that he completed his primary medical education in Nigeria in 2003. The report directly dismantles that claim and concludes that every medical qualification he holds is fatally compromised by the absence of a lawfully obtained primary medical degree. It states he attended the HPCSA board examination in 2006 but never achieved full qualification. Even his South African Master of Medicine was obtained unlawfully because, as the report puts it, this qualification presupposes possession of a valid primary medical degree which was not lawfully obtained or recognized at the relevant time. The investigator's conclusion is unequivocal. Despite holding postgraduate and ancillary qualifications, Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba did not lawfully qualify as a medical practitioner, rendering subsequent specialist designation and practice invalid and improperly obtained. That is why, according to this report, he was suspended in South Africa.
And then Canada just hired him.
These South African findings are profoundly disturbing, and they stand in direct conflict with the CPSA's refusal to investigate baby Alita's death, claiming Dr. Anizoba is a fully qualified practitioner. The report further asserts that even after his suspension, Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba continued to work illegally in South Africa, presenting himself as a family medicine specialist. Practice activity occurred without valid registration, license, or lawful authority, the report states. This conduct constitutes unauthorized medical practice with significant public safety, legal, and ethical implications.
That a little girl who could easily have pulled through an illness like that loses her life because of deceit. Yeah, it's very grieving.
If only I'd gone to Grand Prairie. Changed so many lives.
After completing their investigation, Simply Solitude assessed Dr. Anizoba's overall risk level as extreme. His pattern of practicing without lawful qualification, relying on falsified or misleading documentation, continuing to work after license withdrawal, and misrepresenting himself to patients, institutions, and employers makes him a severe risk to public safety. The report warns that any ongoing association with Dr. Anizoba presents substantial institutional and legal risk, criminal, civil, and regulatory. This means Dr. Ogochakwu Anizoba may not be the only one who bears responsibility for baby Alita's death. The CPSA could share culpability for licensing and retaining a doctor facing these documented allegations of fraud and illegal practice. Alberta Health Services could also share responsibility for hiring him, allowing him to continue to present himself as a qualified doctor. Based on consolidated internal data held by Simply Solitude Limited, the subject was never lawfully qualified to practice as a medical practitioner or specialist at the relevant times, and his license was withdrawn on 28 February 2012 due to qualification deficiencies and dishonest representations. Any medical practice undertaken thereafter, particularly in the Northern Cape, occurred without legal authority and relied on falsified or invalid credentials. This report should be regarded as material evidence for regulatory review, medical legal proceedings, institutional risk assessments, and law enforcement referral where applicable.
A doctor like Anizoba, if indeed this is discovered to be an issue that needs to be addressed, lays burdens on a young woman like that she shouldn't have to carry. She has much more inclination to blame herself, and it would be very beneficial for her if other people would find the fault in places where it really lies, because it doesn't lie with her. As much as she wants to put it on herself, it doesn't lie with her.
Even on the autopsy report, the last page is like, yeah, this pneumonia is so hard to see in young children. If you know that, why send her home? Like, it seems like even more, if you know that it's hard to see the symptoms, hard to see how far it has gotten, then hospitalize her, watch her, and look at her for more than 5 minutes when the mother's saying there's something wrong. He wasn't in that room for maybe 10 minutes, maybe.
Perhaps had a qualified doctor with indisputable legitimacy, a spotless disciplinary history, and verifiable education seen baby Alita that day, rather than Dr. Ogochakwu Anizoba, she could have been saved.
I think it's a very delicate profession, and it has to be treated with great respect and care. I've heard some stories where it's not, and perhaps this is one too that we can prevent in other cases.
This is Stellenbosch University, one of South Africa's most prestigious and reputable schools. I felt compelled to come here to investigate whether Dr. Anizoba has even been to this university. If his Nigerian medical diploma was indeed illegally obtained, how did he surpass the school's own verification process, and how was he allowed to advance his alleged medical education here? But before we explore what I found here, we need to go back to where it all started, Nigeria.
Like a cancer, many Nigerians say corruption is eating too deeply into the nation's existence.
Nigeria is regarded as one of the most fantastically corrupt countries in the whole world.
Corruption is increasing minute by minute, not even day by day.
It is nearly impossible not to be corrupt.
in Nigeria.
As the country slipped 2 places to 142nd out of 182 nations in the 2025 Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index.
Give me money. 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 It is estimated that since its independence in the 1960s, the country has lost nearly $500 billion to corruption. Purchase of fake certificates is very popular to boost CVs.
It's a crime that has thrived over the decades because many employers of labor, institutions, and businesses do not run actual background checks on certificates presented to them.
Fraud and forgery have been commercialized here.
One market in Lagos has been particularly notorious for making fake certificates, the Oluwole market in Lagos Island.
This is the reality in Nigeria.
In terms of corruption, Nigeria has a reputation, as you understand very well, for very massive corruption.
The Nigerian Medical Board has been chronically underfunded. Unlike South Africa or most G20 nations, Nigeria does not even have a publicly accessible registry. There is no publicly accessible record keeping of a physician's educational progression or suspension histories, which leaves us in the dark about a physician's legitimacy. The Nigerian Medical Board claims that one of their core values is transparency, which they evidently are not living up to. On their website, they have a page dedicated to their governing council, which is just a blank page. They have a page dedicated to quack doctors, which has not been updated for years. They also have a page dedicated to doctors they have sanctioned, of which there are none. The page where you can track interim suspensions of practitioners simply reads, "Soon." This is the regulatory body responsible for fighting against medical fraud in Nigeria, but they are almost as good as non-existent, which allows the widespread flourishing of fraudulent doctors in an environment of total anarchy. The UK has been grappling with what they call industrial-scale fraud originating from Nigeria, where more than 700 healthcare workers allegedly used proxies to pass a test that enables them to work in the UK. When a medical school takes part in the fraud, it becomes almost impossible to verify the authenticity of an applicant's medical diploma. And that's exactly the type of medical school Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba claims to have graduated from. This is the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. In June 2026, a Nigerian minister was arrested in an anti-corruption probe on allegations of money laundering and certificate forgery. The former minister is charged with knowingly submitting a degree certificate from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, which he allegedly forged. 3 years before his arrest, when investigative journalists contacted the university falsely confirmed that the ex-minister did graduate from the course, when in fact he didn't. That's the university Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba claims to have graduated from, a university which has a record of falsely confirming the graduation of a student who did not complete their studies. The South Africans I spoke to do not generally trust Nigerian institutions.
Nigerians, it's kind of sketchy, man.
This Uber driver gave me an unfiltered and candid account, which allows us to see how a local South African man perceives the issue of sophisticated international fraud impacting his country.
People are getting certificates for doctor, but then they do some research and find out this guy, he never studied here, he didn't do anything. But they find out he doesn't have a medical doctor certificate. And some of them, when you dig deeper, find out they didn't go to university for that. They only use it to buy it. They even like using money to buy those certificates. So even the government, there are some people that are involved in this kind of situation. There are so many people that are involved.
He says he would rather trust a white doctor over a Nigerian graduate.
When I see the doctor, it depends on the patient. I'll prefer the white doctor. I'm not trying to be racist, but I'll prefer the white doctor. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Wow. So you know the corruption in Nigeria is too much corruption.
While there are qualified Nigerian doctors who are legitimate, it is a fact that turning a blind eye to the realities of forgery and fraud originating from Nigeria is costing Canadian lives.
It's a problem in the world today, you know, the whole question of who's better than who and all this stuff. And I don't have predispositions towards anybody. I do have a pretty strong predisposition towards corruption. You know, people messing around with the well-being of other people for the benefit of whoever and whenever. And I don't see any particular type of people as being more inclined to do that than the next.
Yeah.
In fact, if this is happening because of the medical system in Alberta, then we are just as culpable for corruption as anybody.
Concerns regarding Dr. Ogochakwu Anizoba's education do not end in Nigeria. They only begin there. At Stellenbosch University in South Africa, the picture becomes even more troubling. In the university's online library, I located 2 dissertations written by 2 Anizobas. One was submitted by Dr. Ogochakwu Obed Anizoba, the other was submitted by Dr. Tochakwu Gideon Anizoba, Ogochakwu's biological brother. The 2 dissertations are highly similar in structure and phrasing, and both contain frequent and serious grammatical and spelling errors. In Ogochakwu's paper, sentences such as "this is maybe attributed to an interplay of factors" and "the female gender, unemployment not on disability grant" appear. In Tochakwu's paper, he could not even spell the name of his own university correctly, writing Stellbosch instead of Stellenbosch. How did the university accept these papers? The metadata of both PDF files show they were created just 25 seconds apart. They resided at the same address, practiced medicine in the same remote community, obtained their board exams on the same date, and appear to have graduated from Stellenbosch University on the same date as well. And both brothers ended up practicing medicine in rural communities of Alberta. These similarities go well beyond ordinary coincidences and point to a high degree of coordination between the 2 brothers.
Hi, excuse me, which way is the library?
Literally, maybe you can enter that side, yeah?
I attempted to locate physical copies of the dissertations at the university library, but was told the library does not hold physical copies of student research.
Does not exist physically? No, it's online.
Oh. So when they finish the dissertation,
yeah,
who uploads it online?
Just give me your department.
Oh, I'm not a student. I'm just a visitor from Canada.
Library staff were becoming increasingly wary of my inquiries.
You were a visitor from Canada?
Yeah.
But why do you need this information? Why?
I'm researching.
Oh, so there you go, so you're researching.
Yeah.
Okay, through who are you researching?
Independently, just by myself.
That's my library stuff. No.
She told me that it was the library staff who uploaded the dissertations to their online library. To avoid drawing more attention, I stepped away until a new staff member took over and asked her this question.
What steps are taken to ensure those papers are legitimate?
Legit?
Yeah.
From which department are they?
Health.
Yeah. Okay.
Luckily, she directed me to someone with more knowledge. I told her point blank what I was trying to determine.
These 2 people actually attended the university and they passed and...
Okay. Okay, give me the name of the...
The Stellenbosch representative asked a telling question.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they twins?
They're brothers.
How could 2 brothers who are not twins end up studying in the same department at the same time?
It just happened that they studied the same year, or they completed the same year.
Indeed.
I hope I'm going to find it. I'm trying to search now for the specific...
She explained that, due to repeated changes in the department's name over the years,
the university was unable to locate the relevant records.
You know, all the names change. So, yeah, in this thing it's not even listed like that.
Eventually, I was asked to pursue my inquiry through email. But I was then informed that verification responsibility had been outsourced to a third-party firm. When I contacted that firm, they required payment and detailed personal information that only the brothers themselves possess. Once again, I was hitting institutional stone walls and returning empty-handed.
They couldn't find anything that has to correspond or correlate with them.
Luckily, a South African woman I met in Stellenbosch agreed to help me with my inquiry after I told her baby Alita's story.
I gave him the information of those two students.
She happened to know students from the same faculty and people with administrative access who also felt morally compelled to assist me in my investigation.
What he found out, because as I am a student, I can be able to go to Outlook and check if a follower student was a student by putting their number on their name on the email, and then they have to appear. He said he couldn't find his name on the email, and when they tried to check his friend who is an admin who tried to check their names, they couldn't find anything that has to correspond or correlate with them. It raised suspicion. Was I a student there? Was I not a student? Or what happened? So it's suspicious.
After these concerning discoveries, I had one question in my mind as I begun my journey back to Canada. How diligently does the CPSA check the credentials of these foreign medical graduates seeking a license in Alberta? Once I examined the CPSA's own statistics, everything made sense. International medical graduates now make up more than 40% of Alberta's physician workforce. Between 2018 and 2025, the CPSA received a total of 7,077 license applications. Out of 7,077 license applications, the CPSA only rejected a total of 37 of them. That is a grant rate of 99.48%. And that is how a doctor suspended in another country and his brother, who could not even spell the name of his own university correctly on his thesis, can obtain licenses in a province that almost never turns anyone away. While how diligently CPSA conducts credential checks before handing out a license stares at the face of baby Alita's grieving family, for those of us who have not been thrown into this nightmare, the answer lies in numbers we never had to bother to look, as we lived in the sweet false reality of some rigorous government institution keeping an eye out for us by filtering out the bad doctors. But that's not what the numbers communicate to us. In practical terms, medical licenses in Alberta are being handed out like candy. One would expect CPSA's credential verification process to look like this, but judging by those numbers, it looks more like this. If just about anyone can obtain a license here in Alberta, how can Albertans distinguish a real doctor from a potentially fraudulent one? Alita's grandmother tells mothers to trust their intuition.
That's what I would say to parents. Your intuition, your motherly, parental instincts and love is what you need to go with. And do it right away. Don't wait.
I guess a lesson that I think that I have learned from it is not be too quickly satisfied with a doctor or a nurse's advice if it doesn't feel right. If something seems amiss, there needs to be more willingness for parents, for grandparents, for whoever to say, no, I need to know more. I need to be reassured as to what's going on and why.
It wasn't always like this in Alberta. As Peter's parents recount, they used to have such excellent levels of medical care in the not-so-distant past that they never had to question a doctor's qualifications. That was then. Today, it's not the same. Aside from the qualification and credential verification issues, baby Alita's grandfather asks a simple question. What good is a qualified foreign medical graduate if they don't know how to speak English?
That's an important feature of medical care, is that you can fully and effectively communicate with your patient and back to the doctor. You know, and if we're not doing that, if we're not taking the time and energy as in Canada or Alberta to make sure not just that we have qualified doctors on the level of their medical expertise, but also make sure that they're capable of exercising their expertise in an effective way, you know, and if we don't, we're neglecting the people that they're serving.
Could the decline in quality of care be attributed to politics? This is the Medical Council of Canada. Before most foreign medical graduates can apply for a license in any province, they must first pass the MCCQE, the Medical Council of Canada Qualifying Examination Part 1. This exam tests whether a doctor's knowledge is on par with Canadian medical standards. It is not a test of legitimacy, and it is not designed to filter out fraudsters. In its most recent annual report, the Medical Council of Canada reveals a stark gap in pass rates for the MCCQE. 94% of Canadian medical graduates pass on their first attempt, whereas nearly half of international medical graduates fail on their first attempt, and more than half of those who retake the exam fail again. Could the fact that so many international medical graduates struggle to pass a national standard exam help explain why Alberta has waived the requirement for physicians registered in South Africa? Is this how the province is addressing its doctor shortage? By making entry as easy as possible, approving more than 99% of license applications, including those of questionable doctors like Dr. Ogochakwu and Zoba, who sent baby Alita home to die.
None of us usually take up a cause or deal with issues until it strikes close to home or right at home, which it has with us. So in some ways we've been thrown into it. And if that's the path that we're meant to take, a hard path that we wouldn't choose, well, so be it. And we hope that we can be fair in that role and not be biased.
We're subject to the hurts that we're experiencing to be unfair.
Because of pain. It's easy to go there, and yet I believe it's possible to fight for justice and not be vengeful. Even Esther, I don't see her as that kind of she deeply mourns her daughter, but she's not a vengeful person. And I hope that whatever needs to be uncovered here is uncovered. The truth will stand eventually.
Baby Alita's family is not looking for revenge. They are not vengeful. They ask only for justice, and that justice has been denied to them. The CPSA has dismissed their complaint after assigning an anonymous doctor with similar levels of experience to review Alita's case. With everything now known about Dr. Ogochakwu and Zoba, did that expert truly have similar experience? Was the expert also suspended in another country for alleged fraud, misrepresentation, and illegal practice? Was the expert also trained in a country where reliable verification of credentials is nearly impossible? Who was this anonymous doctor who might also have sent baby Alita home to die? Serious questions remain about how the college chooses these reviewers, and how many other grieving families have had their complaints quietly dismissed through the same closed process. The problems surrounding the Anizoba brothers do not end with their own records. Our investigation uncovered a concerning professional connection between Dr. Ogochakwe Anizoba and the Canadian physician later banned from practicing in Ontario. In 2011, while still in South Africa, and only a year before his suspension, Dr. Ogochakwe Anizoba taught medicine at Walter Sisulu University. At that time, a Canadian professor from Alberta, Ron Hanbest, held a senior position in the same faculty. Back in 2006, Dr. Hanbest resigned and permanently surrendered any right to practice in Ontario in exchange for the college not proceeding with a discipline hearing on allegations of professional misconduct. Shortly after we obtained the official CPSO document outlining his lifelong ban, his public CPSO profile disappeared from the register. Had I began my investigation today, there would be no public record that he was banned from practicing medicine in Ontario for life. Searches by name and by CPSO number now return nothing. Another Nigerian-trained physician who studied under him, Dr. David Odukbemi, later became a major regulatory problem in Alberta and was ultimately declared ungovernable by the CPSA. Dr. Odukbemi testified that it was Professor Hanbest in South Africa who suggested he move to Canada. This raises an obvious question. Did that same informal pathway that brought the ungovernable rogue Nigerian doctor play any role in other physicians moving from that environment into Alberta, including Dr. Anizoba? South Africa has long served as a significant source of physicians for Canada. In 2001, South Africa's High Commissioner issued an unusual public warning, urging Canadian provinces to stop targeted recruitment of South African doctors because of the damage it was doing to South Africa's own health system. Today, roughly 1/3 of the doctors in northern Alberta, where baby Alita's family is from, are foreign medical graduates trained in South Africa. While there are legitimate foreign medical graduates who want to serve northern Albertans, with the CPSA's approved jurisdiction route, the floodgates for unqualified doctors and fraudsters have never been opened wider. The Anizoba brothers, however, allegedly did pass the main medical licensure exams. If they were fraudulent, how could they have passed these exams? For an answer to that question, we must go back to South Africa one last time. Just a year before Dr. Ogochakwe Anizoba was suspended, in 2011, the Hawks, South Africa's specialized police unit that investigates organized crime, dismantled a network of bogus Nigerian doctors operating across South Africa. This case was later discussed in a South African medical journal article by Professor Janet Segi, titled "Trust Me, I'm a Doctor," of bogus doctors, medical imposters, and medical fraudsters. The article examined how difficult it can be to detect fraudulent practitioners. She pointed to a much older warning. In an editorial published by The Lancet more than a century earlier, the journal observed that medicine appears to attract imposters more than most other professions. In short, the bogus doctor is a criminal who is a specialist, and he's assisted by the credulity of others. Medical men, if not actually brought in contact with him, and even those who are, do not always take the precaution of establishing his identity, and laymen who fall into his hands have not sufficient knowledge or sufficient observation to detect him. According to research by Johan Hartland of Bath University, reported in the Health Service Journal, junior doctors develop from being weak links in a team. A team, then, is not surprised to find weak links in its midst. And this allows bogus doctors to get away with a few mistakes. A well-equipped bogus doctor can blend into the medical culture, taking up a position in the medical team, learning by apprenticeship, benefiting from the actions of colleagues, and accumulating experience. In many ways, bogus doctors are uncomfortably like genuine doctors. And this is why passing the exams required by a medical board or having worked at various hospitals is not the ultimate benchmark for determining a foreign medical graduate's legitimacy. The more fundamental question is whether their identity and credentials can be reliably established. Because the two brothers show a high degree of coordination in their academic and professional records, it's necessary to examine both files closely rather than in isolation. The problems identified in one brother's record raise legitimate questions that must also be asked of the other. We made an important discovery about Dr. Tochakwe Anizoba. It raises serious questions about the credibility of his medical education, about how carefully the CPSA checked the two brothers before licensing them, and about how thoroughly AHS reviewed them before hiring them. Throughout our investigation, a pattern of misrepresentation kept appearing, sometimes from the doctors themselves, sometimes from the institutions that hired them. Alberta Health Services introduced the Anizoba brothers to the public as new Nigerian physicians who had simply completed their training in South Africa. That was not accurate. Both men had already been fully registered, practicing physicians in South Africa. The misrepresentations did not stop at the border. When Dr. Ogochakwu's brother was welcomed to Edson, North Zone Medical Director Dr. Jane Ojedekun publicly praised his family medicine and obstetric skills as a unique asset, even though the CPSA had already restricted him from practicing obstetrics. But the most serious discrepancy was this. Dr. Tochakwu was presented to the public as a newly recruited physician. Court records show he had already been hired by Alberta Health Services years earlier, under a different name. In 2016, a clinic in High Prairie tried to hire a doctor from South Africa who called himself Dr. Toby Anizoba. But AHS refused to sponsor his practice readiness assessment. The clinic took AHS to court. They argued that AHS's refusal to sponsor Dr. Toby Anizoba's practice readiness assessment was unfair. A practice readiness assessment is a 3-month period of supervised practice designed to check whether a foreign-trained doctor can meet Canadian standards. In theory, it is a safeguard. In practice, it is not a meaningful filter. Between 2018 and 2025, 981 practice readiness assessments were started in Alberta. Only 11 applicants failed. That is a pass rate of 98.6%. Nearly everyone gets through. The court eventually dismissed the case as moot because AHS sponsored him instead in Westlock, Alberta. Who is Dr. Toby Anizoba? Court records, news reports, and a local clinic.
Dr. Toby worked out of the hospital, I know, but I'm not sure if he worked out of any of the clinics.
All confirm he worked as a doctor in Westlock. But the problem is, there is no Toby Anizoba on CPSA registry, and none on the South African registry either. We suspected that Dr. Toby Anizoba was actually Dr. Tochakwe Anizoba. Even though the CPSA says Dr. Tochakwe only started practicing in 2024, and even though AHS presented him as a newly recruited physician. That suspicion paid off. We obtained the court records from the Court of King's Bench of Alberta of the case from the High Prairie. Those records show that Dr. Toby Anizoba and Dr. Tochakwe Gideon Anizoba are indeed the same person. In the lawsuit, records disclosed by the parties included their communications with Dr. Toby Anizoba, and most importantly, records disclosed his CV. Bingo. A legitimate doctor does not use different names and does not list different graduation years for the same degrees. That is the problem we identified with Dr. Tochakwe Anizoba. On his CV, Dr. Tochakwe claims he graduated from the University of Benin in 2001. According to CPSA records, his year of graduation is 2002, not 2001. But on his LinkedIn account, his graduation year is neither 2001 nor 2002, but 2000. How can a legitimate doctor have 3 different graduation years for the same degree? I traveled to Edson, Alberta to question Dr. Tochakwe Anizoba and give him a fair opportunity to respond. The front desk said he was very busy. I left my contact information, but he never got back to me. And the discrepancies do not end there. Court records show that in late July 2017, Dr. Tochakwe Gideon Anizoba formally accepted a family physician position with Alberta Health Services in Westlock. Yet 1 month later, he wrote to the High Prairie Clinic saying he was still considering accepting the offer from Westlock, when he had already accepted the family physician position in Westlock. At the same time, he presented himself under 2 different names to 2 different employers. This is the brother of Dr. Ogochakwe Anizoba, the physician who sent baby Alita home to die. The contents of their character appear highly similar and questionable. Once I saw who holds authority over physician recruitment and placement in Northern Alberta, the pattern began to make sense. Meet Dr. Jane Ojedekun, the Nigerian official responsible for recruiting and placing doctors in Northern Alberta. Dr. Ojedekun regularly welcomes new hires to Northern Alberta. We examined every public welcoming statement released by Alberta Health Services for new physicians in the North Zone. Under Dr. Jane Ojedekun's leadership, the pattern is clear. Of the 18 doctors she publicly welcomed, 67% received their medical training in Nigeria. That is a higher concentration of Nigerian-trained physicians than all of her predecessors combined since 2015. Is she staffing hospitals in Northern Alberta with carefully vetted qualified physicians, or with doctors who have conflicting graduation years and suspension histories? She does not only recruit for AHS, she also recruits for the private clinic she runs with her husband Joseph Ojedekun, Life Medical Clinic in Whitecourt, Alberta. Nearly every physician she has brought into that clinic is a Nigerian foreign medical graduate. The Ojedekuns who relocated to Canada in 2013 cited economic vibrancy as the reason for their move. In 2018, while holding public medical authority, she worked to block competition against her own private clinic. When a competing private clinic tried to open in Whitecourt, Alberta, Dr. Ojedekun wrote to Town Council opposing it and stated, "Our community definitely does not deserve sub-quality doctors who have not been properly interviewed and vetted by the North Zone Medical Affairs. Poor or substandard care is what will ensue if these doctors are allowed to set up a practice in our community," she said, as if she were not the same official who welcomed a man with 3 different graduation years for his medical diploma, as if it were not her department that vetted and allowed a suspended doctor from South Africa to send baby Alita home to die. The town council, for its part, called her out for what it described as a veiled threat, self-serving, protectionist, and socialist. I went to Life Medical Clinic and called numerous times requesting an interview with Dr. Jane Ojedekun. She has not responded, so the questions remain unanswered. Is poor or substandard care a genuine concern, or just a convenient argument used against anyone who threatens the JOEEZ, the Jane Ojedekun Exclusive Economic Zone? And if that was the gatekeeping culture she practiced in Whitecourt, is she continuing it today across all of Northern Alberta? These questions matter because she occupies a position in which serious conflicts of interest are possible and where the health and safety of hundreds of thousands of Albertans are at stake.
to anybody who has an ability to make a difference in these matters, take it seriously. Do what you know to be right, and not what is maybe beneficial for one party or another, but do what is right. Because without that, everything just keeps getting worse, you know, unless people actually take up a cause to make sure it gets corrected. And that's, to me, that's what government's for. Government is not for business. Government is not for all these other things. It's to make sure that good and right is done and pursued. Whoever you are, wherever you are in the system, that's what I would say you need to be reminded of.
The Ludwigs and the Gerbrands are healing as one family. Although they remain profoundly hurt by the loss of Alita and Peter, they believe both have ascended to a better place than this world. Pictures of Alita and Peter surround Esther's cabin. They will never be forgotten. Esther continues to be a strong young woman, raising Alex and Raphael, supported by her many brothers and sisters. Through this story, she is hopefully joined by tens of thousands around the world in prayer and in the demand for real change.
If that was Alita's time to go, if that was Peter's time to go, then it was, and his plan was fulfilled. But I feel like we still make mistakes. I have probably made mistakes that somehow we still have to learn how to do better and put our trust in people that have earned it. And like I said, sometimes I think maybe she still would have gone home if we had gone to Grand Prairie. Maybe she would have died in the hospital where she was scared and being poked and, you know, all those things. But that, because maybe it was her time, right? Maybe anything we could have done wouldn't have, but we still have to do our best. And I don't think that he did. That's what I want the world to know. That we, even though it hurts us more than I ever could have imagined, I feel like this has made me feel like this isn't our home. Our home's bigger than this.
Due to the gravity of the allegations and the serious consequences they would have for Dr. Ogochakwe-Anizoba's reputation, career, and life, I decided to visit the Beaver Lodge Hospital to give him a final opportunity to provide his side of the story and to address the real reason for his South African suspension, including the serious allegations of fraud, misrepresentation, and illegal practice. Instead of answers, I found something else. Yeah. This guy, he just doesn't want to answer questions, eh?
I appreciate that you went and wanted to give him the opportunity to speak for himself. I really wish he would have.
Yeah.
Because it would help us to have more confidence in our system.
Yeah. Absolutely. That would have shown a lot about accountability.
I parked on a public road and waited for his shift to end so I could put my questions to him, a standard and foundational journalistic practice. A few hours later, the RCMP arrived.
If you are doing wrong, you have done something wrong, you accept it and you say, hey, I did something wrong. Don't just smear over things and you do this wrong and you just try to hide it under a rug. You don't do that. And that's where we suffer through that way when they do it.
Hi there.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Constable Kipling, Beaver Lodge RCMP. So I just pulled over to you. Just let you know you're not detained. Nothing
Okay,
like that. So
good.
If at any time you want to leave, you're free to do so.
Thank you.
I just pulled over because we've had some you're not doing anything illegal.
Thank you.
You're sitting here on a public road.
Right.
You're allowed to park here. But
Thank you.
we did have some complaints just from people at the hospital here. Some staff, some patients, just because they said you've been sitting here since about 1
I've been
o'clock.
sitting here for a long time.
Yeah, so they just basically wanted me to come check, see what's going on.
Everything is good. I'm a journalist from Calgary.
Okay.
I'm doing a story on a doctor here, and I want to ask him questions. I have to do my due diligence to give him an opportunity to comment.
Yeah, so I will let you know that you are trespassed from the Beaver Lodge Hospital here.
Since when?
Since March. I have a paper if you would like to be served it, so that you have a copy of it.
Yeah, I've never been served. I've never been asked to leave. Like, what's the basis?
Do you want me to go grab it so that I can read it to you and I can give it to you?
Yeah, you know what? Can I have the paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think it would be good for my records. Sure, sounds
good.
They informed me that Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba no longer works at the Beaver Lodge Hospital, and that he had submitted a harassment complaint against me following my March visit. That complaint, which we are attempting to obtain, was apparently serious enough that Alberta Health Services banned me from every AHS hospital and facility for 1 full year.
You are advised that your presence is not acceptable at this facility or any facility under the control of Alberta Health Services.
The ban exploded on social media. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians who had seen my respectful conduct and the scale of the overreaction condemned the AHS decision as unjustified, censorious, and outrageous.
You know, based on what I've seen so far, I think Alberta Health Services is in the wrong here.
The Canadian Constitution Foundation released a letter warning Alberta Health Services that it is violating my charter rights. But I am not the real victim of Dr. Ogochukwu Anizoba's misrepresentations. Little baby Alita is. As Esther has explained, Dr. Anizoba may also have made misrepresentations during that short-lived, non-transparent investigation by the CPSA.
We wrote up a rebuttal and we got it signed by a notary just because we thought maybe that will make him be a little bit like, maybe I shouldn't lie to the CPSA, because there were a few things that he reported that were false. I'm concerned that he's not telling the truth when he's telling his side of the story.
Do you feel like they've done their due diligence?
I don't. I feel like they, first of all, they didn't hardly investigate. They let him read my complaint, by the sounds of it, before he told his side. And yeah, I feel like they could have done better.
The Anizobas are not the only ones. There are others banned or sanctioned in other jurisdictions who were still allowed to practice in Alberta. Dr. Bamidele Adiegbo serves as the most famous example. He performed nearly 5,000 autopsies for Alberta families and determined cause and manner of death. Prosecutors used him as an expert witness, yet he had falsified his work history, and US authorities were never able to verify his medical degree from Nigeria. Dr. Imafiden Izikor, another Nigerian-trained physician, was banned by the Texas Medical Board in 2013 for holding himself out as a doctor while unlicensed. In Saskatchewan, he was found guilty of sexual misconduct involving multiple women, including a child, and of overbilling the public system by $250,000. Despite his suspension in Saskatchewan, he was still able to practice in Alberta. These are not isolated cases. There are more, and their victims number in the thousands.
And God said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? Utterly detestable things the Israelites are doing here, things that will drive me far from my sanctuary. But you will see things that are even more detestable. Then he brought me to the entrance to the court. I looked, and I saw a hole in the wall, and he said to me, Son of man, now dig into the wall. So I dug into the wall and saw a doorway there. And he said to me, Go in and see the wicked and detestable things they are doing here. So I went in and looked, and I saw portrayed over the walls all kinds of crawling things, and unclean animals, and all the idols of Israel. In front of them stood 70 of the leaders of Israel. Each had a censer in his hand, and a fragrant cloud of incense was rising. He said to me, "Son of man, have you seen what the leaders of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at the shrine of his own idol? They say, 'The Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land.' Again he said, 'You will see them doing things that are even more detestable.' He brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and there at the entrance to the temple, between the portico and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord and their faces towards the east. They were bowing down to the sun in the east. He said to me, 'Have you seen this, Son of man? Is it a trivial matter for the people of Judah to do the detestable things they are doing here? Must they also fill the land with violence and continually arouse my anger? Look at them putting the branch to their nose. Therefore I will deal with them in anger. I will not look at them with pity or spare them. Although they shout in my ears, I will not listen to them.'" So the reason I think this passage is poignant to this situation is because you often see the results of corruption in little things, low things. For instance, the case of Alita. It's just a doctor in a small town. But so often when you start seeing it there, the Bible is warning us, look higher up. You'll see even more detestable things, corruption, what have you. And he says, and you think that's bad? Look higher up. Let me take you here. And I think this case that you're exploring shows very much that these things have a ladder that comes down from, ladder of higher ups, institutions, governing bodies, so many things that have to fall into place, corruption that has to be set in motion before things like this get this way. And I think it's very important for our country, the people of our country, to realize just how far this may have come down from. And I really honor what you're pursuing here to try to expose that.
Back in February, before I began this journey, I genuinely believed there were real safeguards in place, institutions and mechanisms that made it extremely difficult for fraudulent doctors to obtain medical licenses in Alberta. I no longer believe that. Medical licenses are almost handed out like candy. No meaningful resistance. There is no rigorous verification. There is no serious vetting. And now you know it too. To Esther, to Alita's, and to Peter's family, thank you for having the courage to speak about this tragedy and entrusting me with your story. I hope you find some measure of peace, and I hope the truth you help bring forward will prevent another child from being sent home to die. You did not have to do this, but because you did, others may be safer. If you want to support baby Alita's family, I have left a link to their GoFundMe in the description or the comment section of this video. Pursuing justice in Canada is expensive, and they deserve that support. I have also left a donation link for the Hatarian Emergency Aquatic Response Team, HART, the group that recovered Peter's body from the depths of Clearwater Lake. They operate through donations, and the work they do is critical. I want to thank the generous donors who made this investigation possible. Thank you. I hope you're proud of the work that was done. Every step of the way, I try to fulfill the obligations of an investigative journalist, with integrity, with honesty, with truth. I released this documentary for free, not because I don't need resources, but because putting it behind a paywall would have limited its reach. I want this story shared. I want the truth known, far and wide. If you want to support my ability to continue this work, you can donate at mediabezirgan.com/donate. Your support is needed and genuinely appreciated. There are many stories like this one that needs to be told, and I have no doubt baby Alita's family's courage will encourage other families to come forward. Finally, I want to be clear. Dr. Ogochakwe Anazoba, his brother Dr. Tochakwe Anazoba, and their superior at Alberta Health Services, Dr. Jano Jedikun, were given repeated opportunities to address these serious allegations. Instead of answering, they chose to have me banned from every Alberta Health Services hospital. I expect they may try to use lawyers to take this documentary down. I will never delete it, not for $1 billion, not for any amount of lawfare, because I'm Mocha Bezirgan, and this was a Media Bezirgan investigation. Thank you for watching.